Hello, this is Peter Morrissey from the Stockbury Dark. Working closely with my co-host Klaus Almian from Stockholm, Sweden, we plan on bringing you truly dark stories from one side of the world to the other. We have been busy interviewing many of our friends from our world and subculture, stories dealing mainly with the occult, paranormal, and other dark topics. We really hope you enjoy these episodes as much as we do. What started as a spark from the mind of Klaus has now certainly ignited a huge firestorm of stories that will surely keep you up at night. The Stockbury Dark can be found on iTunes Podcasts, on our Facebook page, the official Stockbury Dark, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as our website, thestockburydark.com. We can be reached at thestockburydark@gmail.com. Please help us spread the word, and thank you for listening. This episode of the Stockbury Dark is brought to you by the Black Market Kitchen. The Black Market Kitchen is a meal service providing you with delicious, healthy, and clean meals. Do you live a busy life and don't have the time to cook, or do you just prefer the convenience of having your meals prepared? With a range of options to suit many tastes and dietary preferences, Black Market Kitchen caters to a wide variety of folks. Perhaps you want to lose weight, eat less processed and packaged foods, and or just improve your overall health. At Black Market Kitchen, they have developed an understanding of the types of foods athletes and active individuals need to fuel their daily activities. They offer vegetarian, paleo, and ketogenic compliant options in addition to their regular clean meals. The gourmet menu, consisting of perfectly sized portions, is updated weekly, providing customers with something new and delicious each week. It is their mission to make achieving your nutrition goals easier. No matter what your sport or diet, Black Market Kitchen wants to help you become the best version of yourself. Streamline your life and order up your meals. Black Market Kitchen offers statewide door-to-door delivery in Connecticut for a $25 fee. If you're local to the greater Waterbury area, stop in and try a fresh juice, smoothie, protein shake, or bulletproof coffee, and grab a few meals from the cooler. They have tons of healthy snacks to choose from, including their house-made keto bars, as well as raw and vegan options as well. Visit their website at theblackmarketkitchen.com. Sign up for the mailing list and have the weekly menu delivered to your inbox. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram at the Black Market Kitchen. Hello and welcome to the Stockbury Dark. My name is Peter Morrissey.
I'm Klaus out in Sweden.
And today we have a great friend and a great guest, Max G. Morton from the band Cold Cave, underground author of many, many awesome books. Got a lot of new projects going on. Very happy to have you here, Max. You're one of my best friends in the world, and I know you had a crazy life and many bizarre happenings, and we're going to touch on a lot of those things today. So thanks for hooking up with us today, man. Totally great honor to have you here.
Of course, and these are some things I don't even write about, and I think you two are the only people I would discuss a lot of this with, so it's exciting.
That's great, because we're going to touch on a lot of things, yeah, exactly, that you've never written about, and I know you have a lot of fans and a lot of people who follow, your writings and your books, and, when they listen to this, there's going to be a lot of unheard stories, which is really cool for them as well. So, yeah, thank you, man.
What I love about this, Max, is that I kind of feel that in our writing to each other throughout the last couple of years, I kind of feel the stuff that you and I have talked about and subjects that we've spoken of, you kind of, you didn't see this coming me and Pete doing this, but you kind of saw it coming at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And I love that you guys are doing this. And the energy is, I've had so many weird things happen in the past couple days preparing for this. And I'm at my mother's house right now in Arizona. And right when you guys were trying to Skype with me, there was a knock on the door. And it was a neighbor asking if it was my mother's cat that just got eaten by a coyote. So that is going on as we're preparing for this, which just kind of, it, at this point in my life, stuff like that, I just am like, yeah, that, of course that happened. But it definitely gave me the chills where I was like, here we go.
Proper timing.
By the words of Max, the gods know.
Yes.
So you're in Arizona now, right, Max?
I still live in Los Angeles. I came here from Russia last year to work on we're developing a show that's been in the works for a few years based on my writing and childhood stuff. So kind of came here to tune everything out and actually focus on this book, which is a combination of all the short stories from Heartworm and, really just sit down with my mother and go over a lot of things that, I've kind of ignored for years,
Right. Yep.
And a lot of that ties into stuff we can talk about here, which is, I not affected by much, but I felt sick to my stomach going over a few stories to talk to you guys today with her last night. Really, really eerie.
Cool. I mean, we're ready to jump right in. So whatever you want to start with would be great. And
okay. Yeah. And if you guys have anything you want to touch on, I definitely like to, for, people who don't know, the house I lived in for years, that was yours. There was definitely some strange energies there.
Yeah, definitely. The first couple podcasts we did for the Stockbury Dark were basically introduction podcasts. So one story was mine, and one story was Colossus for episode 1 and 2. And so episode 1, it touched heavily on Maynard House, and gave a lot of stories about the history of the place. And it's cool that, it's going to be a reoccurring theme because you've lived there for a few years yourself, and you've experienced some things on a smaller extent.
I would also like to add there that for the listeners out there, we're going to upload some pictures of that house on social media in the future for people to see what it actually looks like, at least from the outside.
When it's an old house. It's probably about 100-year-old house now, and it was one of the first homes in that neighborhood. And when I bought it, it was a piece of junk. I didn't have a lot of money back then. I bought this house for a cheap price, and I redid the whole place, and it turned into a beautiful house. But it had a sordid history. It was a party house. For a lot of transient people in and out of there for years, renters coming and going. And when I finally purchased the home, we found out, the suicide that took place in the house and, the things that I experienced. So Max, also had a part of it too. So, yeah, you can just take it from here, Max.
Well, it's fitting into this. I had my mother fly out to watch my dog so I could go see Venom play. And the house across the street caught on fire, which I think you remember, Pete. It was, which, my mom was oblivious to. You had texted me, and, it was, just humorous, going to see your teenage black metal band, and, your mom's back in your house, and, there's fires next door. But I didn't tell her about the suicide just because she's so sensitive to energies. And, she said the house felt good. And, the energy was always good there. I was never uncomfortable, but I would have these occurrences where, you start to kind of feel like you're losing your mind, where middle of the night, it would, like a voice like yours screaming in my ear, my name. And I would jolt out of bed and, My girlfriend was passed out sleeping, dog sleeping, no one near, no one in the house. I've probably woken up in that house a good 30 times with being yelled at and no one there.
It's funny that you were yelled at in that house, because I was always having whispers in my ears in that house, which is one extreme to the other. But
yeah, and things have fallen off walls there. Things have moved. A lot of shadows. But which I guess I'd like to go back to some childhood stuff. But I had a friend who committed suicide, an old roommate of a friend of mine, and you had met him, Pete, when you went to our old house to pick up some books to distro while I was living in New York. And, I've only had two people do this to me in my life, where you're sleeping and someone hovers over you into like literally head on. And the energy post his suicide in that house, for whatever reason, really picked up, to the point where Alessandra, my girlfriend at the time, couldn't sleep. She was having nightmares, visions of his face. And, I kept seeing him, kept seeing shadows in the house. And that's when the yelling in my ear started, progressing.
So I never knew that you were seeing actual, like, physical faces. What could you describe that?
I've seen a lot of physical faces and things, and they're always like, the best way to describe them is like a charcoal drawing.
Right.
Just kind of like a smoky energy that has a face. There's kind of a Native American face that follows me around. There's also weird animal energies I've seen. And in that house, 4-legged shadow things run through, and there's no, cats in my lap, dogs sleeping. And you see things, you feel things. There's definitely a presence, but nothing threatening. And I saw, the roommate who had passed away, saw his face in there a lot towards the end.
Really?
And, I grew up with a very, like, the opposite of my mother was my father. And my mother was, around the time I was 10 when the divorce was happening, I think she really picked up on, more of her abilities and was open to things from her childhood, and, started doing a lot of energy work and getting involved in a lot more esoteric studies. And so I've witnessed like proper burials and things to release energies, and partaken in a lot. Unfortunately, when this roommate had died, he killed himself to a black metal record, and the record was covered in blood, brains, just his head. And my roommate, who owned the house, had kept the record. And when I had moved to LA, this was like 2 years ago, like 2 weeks ago, basically, he was like, we got to get rid of the record today. He had just had a son, so his timing wasn't the best to do a proper burial. We're in Silver Lake. I don't have any place to bury anything. My resources was limited, and it was kind of thrown into my lap. So, there's you got to look at humor on certain things. So I'm trying to burn a record in the courtyard of my apartment on a cookie sheet, because I have nothing else to do. So we're in leather jackets, dressed in black. I have that ridiculous mustache at the time, and I'm trying to burn a record. My hand is just black, bleeding. Like, he's stomping on the record. We're trying to get it to smash. It's just like it fell apart quickly. And
Uh-huh.
the new neighbor thought they would introduce themselves at that moment. So we look like we're smoking crack. We're like bent over, light, there's like a torch flame going, and, there's blood all over, dried blood all over this record. And, freaked out the neighbor. And then, my roommate had to leave. So I was stuck with this record, and there's no place to bury it. So it ended up in the trash in front of the 7-Eleven next to my house. And, we just kind of had to find humor in a situation that was just so sad and tragic and brutal.
Uh-huh.
And, I'm not going to get into a ton of his past with his suicide, but, after that, well, before the burning, but after he died when I was still in the Maynard house, he would pop in, see his face, and, was trying to kind of release the energies. And, I made peace with the situation. And 2 weeks ago, on the date of his anniversary, I got stung by a scorpion in my bed here, which is a little odd. And the girl that he was seeing during the suicide, who no one's seen in years, my roommate saw that, our roommate at the time saw her at the airport that day. Which, he texted me to be like, I just saw her at the airport at 5 a.m. It's the anniversary. And I was having to get anti-venom for a scorpion bite.
Jesus. You ever think like your life is like a magnet for the bizarre? Like the things that
it's
there's so
try
many
to embrace it, but it's
insane
frustrating.
occurrences, you know what I mean? From when you were a kid to even in your adult life now, it's like a nonstop barrage of insanity, which in itself, I mean, that's what makes you who you are, and there's got to be some force in you that's just pulling in, like, I don't know what. It's just
I think people, people don't understand why I try to be private and I don't want to hang out or talk to anyone, but it's things like this, and you kind of have to just laugh at it. But these things, I embrace it. Like certain things to mellow out some with age, which sometimes they do, but there's definitely, and that's kind of what I've been, just even the writing, when you write stuff, you release things, you open up things, sometimes you heal things, but a lot of the stuff which I've just been trying to make sense of for so long, you do have to wonder, like you just said, like what attracts this, you know? And, sometimes you start to feel crazy, like, like at the Maynard house, like, is this in my head? Is this a real thing? In the Maynard house, the one thing I forgot too that would always happen is the sheets would get ripped off of me and Alessandra, and it was almost like you were like in the house playing jokes, like, but no one's in there, like you're sleeping in bed and the covers just go straight off of you.
I mean, you aren't the first, nor are you the last person to have these occurrences there. So, you're not alone with that, even though you might have felt like, am I crazy when this is happening? Because we've got a handful of friends, over the years that have all had, a lot of experiences there, some different from others, but all falling under that same realm of what's going on here. Something is happening. And a lot of people have felt it and seen things and heard things and had the covers ripped off them and heard the voices. And, me and you and Alessandra aren't the only three, is what I'm saying.
And like I said, like that house, though, it feels very, like, I love that house. It feels very peaceful to me. Like, even though the energy's a little, there's someone getting your attention and there's things happening. It never felt bad to me.
Right.
But there's definitely things lurking there. It's definitely a past. And, I think, which, when you're a kid, I think you're open to things a lot more. And I think animals see energy. I think children see things that adults don't.
We've touched on that a lot. 100%. And me and Pete had a kind of private discussion about that just the other day, that when you're really young, you are so you haven't added layer after layer after layer yet, so you're fucking open to anything, and you're open to energies that us as adults are. I mean, we're wearing armor, so we don't have that access anymore at all.
I totally agree, and it's something I think about all the time. And I was going through stuff with my mom last night, and just different things and family stuff and stuff that I just don't want to put into the book. And there's always been the sense there's a connection with her and and at there I vary on what my beliefs are sometimes with energies and past life.
Mm-hmm.
So those are things I don't really want to get into, but there's a connection that's very strong with her and and there's been a thing in our family where we just predict things, we say things, and things happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Skyway Bridge in St. Pete collapsed when I was a kid. My mother turned around right before crossing it.
Right.
She went into a mall, turned around, and there was a shooter in the mall right after. There's things that intuition she has that I don't think everyone has. And she's always been connected with that. And I think I lost a part of it as, you get older. And I think when I started doing drugs, that definitely opened my mind to a lot of things. And it's just been recently through healing and health things that I've been not in denial of these occurrences and things I've seen. And, one of the things, my first memory of something out of the ordinary with my mom was she had lost her wedding ring. And my dad was very violent. And, she said to me last night, I said, he's going to kill you. And I was probably like 7, 8 years old. And we tore apart the house looking for the ring. He was on his way home. And, this doesn't sound real. And, there's things why written, I choose not to say in books, but my mother and I watched the ring fall from the ceiling of the house.
Like just fall from, it
yep,
just came right down.
Just straight down. And it's something I've always tried to put out.
Uh-huh.
And, and she confirmed it yesterday. And I don't know how to explain that.
I don't think anybody does it. I mean, I believe these stories, with sincerity, because I don't doubt you. But just hearing something like that is unbelievable,
and I feel like sick saying it out loud.
Right.
And I have hair on my arm sticking up right now because I know what I saw. Uh-huh. She knows what she saw. And, you know me, you've spent time with my mother. It's, I'm not going to try to convince someone what, because it is, I can't make sense of it. But that happened. And
it's almost like a guardian angel was watching over or something,
Yeah, and it's one of those things like, who do you, like when you're a kid, who do you talk to about that? Or how do you explain that? Yeah. And, my mother, when she was a child, she used to wake up screaming and, had these terrors. And she went into the bathroom and her sister came in and screamed. And my mother had hand marks across her throat.
Whoa.
And my mother was very calm about it. Her sister freaked out. And, there was no way anyone did it or could get into that room. And my mother was like, and this is what I'm talking about the innocence of a child and just being open. She didn't read books on this stuff. She didn't, this is like the 50s. And she just said, I was choked in my past life. She was like, now I know. And she never had a terror of that again. But she had a vision from the John Ringling Museum from that house of her running down on the checkerboard floor and being strangled to death. And, weird skin rashes would happen when she would go into that museum. And, she has vivid visions of that. And that's something her sister's seen. And, and like I said, there's things I can't prove these things. Like, I wasn't there, but there's two people that are, one's freaked out and one accepted it. But, my mother, like 1957 or something, woke up with, gasping for air and had hands prints around her throat.
Wow.
And visions of the strangulation. So, obviously, like childhood stuff, there was a lot of things reappearing, disappearing. And, I'm not saying drugs was a reason to cope with certain things, but, I think I wanted to tune out my life and the energy and the things that I draw myself to.
It's one of many ventiles.
My grandmother died, and we were told she had 6 months to live. I had came from New York to see her, and my grandmother told me she didn't want me to see her again, didn't want to see her like this. And, we had very loving, very great talk. My grandmother's like the only person I've never had any issues with in my life on my mom's side. And I left the house, got back to where I was staying, and the girl asked, "How's your grandmother?" And I go, "She's dead. Died right when I left." And I stopped, and I was like, "What? Why the fuck did I say that? Like, how am I gonna I'm gonna go see my grandmother tomorrow? Like, how am I gonna get out of this? Like, this is a weird thing to say." And phone rang a minute later, and it was my mom crying. Grandmother had died.
Oh.
A year to the day of my grandmother's death, my grandfather died. He forced my mom out of town for an art show. She was in Atlanta. I was at her house in Florida, and her boyfriend at the time was going to dinner with my grandfather, and I OD'd. And it's one of those things when you're dead, and it's a really hard feeling to describe, but it's like when that gets into your bloodstream and you just kind of go, oh shit, and you fall. Next thing I know, hours later, I had some visions with my grandparents in a lake and deers and animals that still follow me around that I connect with my grandparents. And I woke up to my mom's boyfriend standing over me, kicking me, looking pale as a ghost. And I said, "My grandfather's dead, I know." Freaked him out. My mother came home, and grandfather swallowed his wedding ring and had a heart attack.
Jesus.
On the 365 days to the day, a year to the day of his wife's death. So there's things like that happen where, he had the heart attack. He was face down. I was face down. There's something there,
Yeah.
And those
I mean, you live a life of almost like a life of coincidence where these happenings just like are paralleling with other things, at the same time, which is really uncommon and mysterious.
And you can't deny that,
no,
when that
definitely
happens
not.
that many
And a lot
times.
of it, a lot of the times it passes down too, like from your mother to son, or from parent to child, and not all siblings get that, but something was passed down from your mom to you. Definitely, you guys are in tune. You share a lot of the same like similar mysterious occurrences, and we never really touched on past lives before. Where you just told me your mom has, but did you have like any past life experiences as well?
Nothing that I can pinpoint, I've always been, just in that kind of new age circuit with my mom, and,
Right.
everyone that would come up to me is always like, "You're an old soul, you're this, you're that," which if the past life is a reality, I do believe that. And I do believe I would say it is a karmic thing with a lot of these energies, a lot of these things that keep occurring in my life for sure. I've never had a vision that clear like my mother's had. I have more of a reoccurring thing where I dream of the same place every night. And the place that I dream of is the shape of New York City, and everything is connected through the streets of New York, where my old apartment leads me to my grandmother's house in Florida. If I go down to the World Trade Center, it takes me to the beaches in Florida. Now parts of Waterbury has turned into this place. But there is like this parallel life that I live where I do just kind of normal life things where like I smoke a cigarette in a dream and I'm like, oh, what are you doing? You don't smoke anymore. Or, like
I remember you telling me about this before, where it's almost like there's like these portals that go to other parts of your past from the city.
Yeah, and it layers, but I really know how to maneuver around it, but everything's off just a little. And you've been there, Pete. Like, certain people show up and we do normal things, and it's bizarre when you explain it, but I don't know what you dream or what anyone dreams, but you see, like what a stereotypical dream is of kind of shapes and colors and an animal and things that don't really make sense. Like, so I don't know if people have like these dreams that they're just walking and they're eating and they're pissing and they're, calling people and answering work emails in them, Like I'll have a dream where I'm doing a door shift at a bar from New York.
Right.
And I'm just like, and it feels like a 6-hour dream. And I don't know what that is, but there's definitely something that when I pass out, I end up in, And, I've had weird thoughts of it's, another reality. I've had thoughts that it's preparation for an afterlife. It could just be a dream. I have no idea, but it's something that I go through nightly.
Yeah. So you have vivid dreams pretty much every night?
Yeah, I would say the dreams I have a minimum of 5 times a week. And I can, when I wake up, it's like this, us having this conversation now, it's like that clear,
Yeah, I think I probably have like one vivid one a week, which is a lot for most people, I would think, Sometimes, when you have those super vivid dreams and they're so clear when you wake up and you have to either write it down or you're going to forget about it.
They unravel for sure.
Oh, in like minutes. Like they can be so clear. You can give the most minute details in these dreams and the words that were said. I'll sometimes I have them with music where I'm like actually writing music in my dreams and I wake up with this like beautiful like melody in my head. And I know if I don't like record it immediately, it's going to disappear and I'll never remember it again. And they'll like, it's just amazing how fast they fade in that conscious state once you're up,
That's so accurate. And, and it's a thing where even sometimes I'll have in this dream, like I'll have a book out or there'll be a record or there'll be a word or, a girl or something where I'm like, okay, I need to take note of this or I need to write this line down for writing or remember this. And it's so clear. I'm like, oh, I've got it. And by the time I'm out of bed, there's one word or there's like a fuzzy photo. Like I can't ever get back to it. But like I would say like I probably have like a minute of replaying the dream. And like by the time like I go and piss or something, it's done.
Yeah.
And, there's certain dreams that like I can tell you everything about the city and what this place is. And there's records that don't exist in stores. And there's things that I can tell you, but even me explaining to them has clear in my head. I can't really verbalize.
Yeah, it's hard. I have those same things too. You know, like these certain it's almost trying to explain a feeling to somebody when you can't really put it into words what it does to your body. I used to have these super vivid dreams as a child where it was more like a feeling than an actual something I'm visually seeing. And I would get them in these like dreams, and I would come out of this dreams feeling a certain way, but there was no way I can dictate to anybody the actual like true words to describe what that feeling was. Even now, it's hard for me to even describe it. You know, it's just another world beyond description. And you
I've had a
know,
very, like, what you're saying is so, it's, you know, it gives me chills because I've had, like, there's like an anger that comes from certain dreams and a sadness that
yep,
I've never felt that is so heavy.
yep,
And, you know, and I mean, these dreams I have, like, I sometimes wake up drained from them, you know, like tired,
yep.
like I feel like I didn't sleep.
You know, as bizarre as it sounds, Max, I have when trying to describe what I was just telling you, it's almost like I swear to God, I can taste it. There's something in my there's like a feeling in my throat where it's almost like my sense of taste is getting like just blowing up in my mouth because of this certain feeling, and that's about as close as I can get to describing what I'm talking about. It's really
Do you
bizarre.
ever have you ever like smelled like a perfume or like a flower or heard like a melody of a song that triggers something?
Oh yeah,
Like that's something that's like reoccurring to me where there's like this deja vu. But it doesn't feel like from this life, but there will be like a smell I'll smell and it will just fucking destroy me emotionally.
mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but like it's just something inside that can't come out, you know, like what you're saying, that's so hard to verbalize. But there's tastes and there's, you know, a lot of things in my childhood come with this metallic taste
Mm-hmm.
where, you know, I would kind of lose time sometimes, which is seizure related, but I, you know, like, and even just dreams, but there's this uncomfortable like feeling that sometimes will hit me. And it's the one thing, like what you said, just triggered in me where I taste like metal in my mouth.
So bizarre. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. There's so many hidden things like in the subconscious, you know, that we very rarely touch on, and when we do, it's still so distant and so far. But we'll never figure out what it is.
No, and you know, everyone's perception's different, and everyone feels and sees something different. And you know, like I said, some of the stuff you sound, you know, I don't want to be the guy. It's like an ex-drug addict with like face tattoos, like telling these stories because you sound like a crazy person, you know. um, so you know, you have to pick and choose, and there's a lot of people that kind of latch on to these energies that are really unhealthy.
Uh-huh.
So you know, I'm always wary on things, but I've tried to like talk to less people and just really write in the past year and kind of not be really isolated to also kind of try to understand a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I don't think you ever fully will, but there's so many emotions and visuals and flickers and feelings that I own that, you know, are haunting.
Right. I know you talked past, like in your past, of like drug use, and do you think a lot of like the drug use buried a lot of these things, or maybe even opened up some other things in your subconscious that brought you to where you are today?
Well, depending how weird you want to get with this, there's something there's something that kind of fits into this, which is one of those things that I can't explain. But I'll try.
Okay.
And you know, this is stuff I touch on and whatever. I'm not going to get too personal on it, but you know, I was abused by my father as a kid, and I think when you grow up getting hit and you know things like that, it does shape you and change you. And I think you get into your head a little more, you know? And I think I was, until my mom's divorce, like, my dad tried to maybe kill me, maybe kidnap me. He smashed our door in with an axe when I got home from school one day. And, I think when events like that happen, they change you forever. And I don't think my mom knew how to deal with it. And, you start hanging out with skinheads and older people, like your life picks up really quickly. And, drugs were something I never wanted to do because I saw someone OD in my house. I saw my neighbor attack his family on angel dust that my dad gave him. I saw really negative things of it. And I did acid with these girls, and it kind of opened up this world where I felt sane, and like, that's the thing with drugs. Like, you feel everyone thinks they can cheat it and they're special and they're different. And, and I think you spend a lifetime trying to get back to that initial high or that first feeling. And I think originally the drugs kind of opened me to a lot of things I was hiding. And then I think, it did the exact opposite of that. But, I kind of wanted to not feel. And when, Star Wars Close Encounter time, like 77, there was some lights in the sky in my neighborhood, and
this is in Florida?
Yeah, this was in Florida, and there was a sound that went with the lights, and there was like a breeze that's not really known. Florida's not really known for, and all the kids were kind of ordered to go back inside, and no one wanted to talk about it. And it was something I always brought up, and it was just this terrifying, it was like this moment of terror. It was like, there was just these unknown lights in the sky. And, you go through 20 years of life, and my mom's living in the woods in Florida, and I was pretty numb and didn't really think about a lot of things. And this was probably 92, 93. There was a meteor shower. And at the time it was supposed to be the largest meteor shower. And I blacked out during the meteor shower, and I saw those same lights, felt that same wind, and heard the same noise. And I lost 5-6 hours. My mom came and woke me up, and I knew it wasn't drugs.
Right.
I knew I could know the difference of highs, and I don't know what it was, I don't know if there was something in the sky. I don't know if it's something subconscious that linked me back to an instant of my childhood, but I woke up and everything was vivid. I could remember everyone I went to elementary school's name with, everything. And up until that moment, I didn't have this memory that I'm cursed with today that's so photogenic.
Really?
And I don't know what.
I wonder what changed.
Happened. Yeah, but something changed that night.
And you have how many? You said you had 5-6 hours of lost time. You can't account for.
Yep. Me just laying in the dirt, in the grass by a pond.
You were definitely taken aboard a ship. I mean, that's such one of the main lost time incidents of people that say they were abducted.
Yeah,
where you can go into some hypnotic state. Maybe you'll recall some sort of abduction.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the easy answer, and I would actually love that.
I know, I would too.
But that's all I know from that, and it's I think you have experiences like these things that we talk about, and like I said early on, things that I'm kind of only comfortable, talking with someone as close to as you, because I know you also understand these things.
Yep.
And you accept them for what they are. And, I can't make any sense of them, but I can, I know the difference between a dream and a high and something that's, you're
Right.
seeing.
Right. Wow.
And I mean, there's always, I've had a lot of weird, I guess, with the mom connection too. And this is, I don't even know if you and I had ever discussed this, but my mom made me, so when she was driving home from the trip from Atlanta when my grandfather died, an owl flew through her windshield. So
That same very
like,
trip. That
yes,
same very.
as she was pulling into our driveway at home.
I don't even know what to say about that. I mean,
Yeah, no one does, and I don't even talk about it. But my mom does a lot of things with animals and bones, and so she had the wings saved, and she made this box with an owl wing in it, and bunch of different things. It was like a protection, and she was like, whenever you're ready for this, I was like, yeah, send it to me. And I think that was kind of probably around the time there was voices in the Maynard house, and it felt right. So there's this, insane framed piece of art my mom made with an owl wing, deer bone, cat skull, feathers, crystals. She mailed it to me. Pete and I are doing the year. Who fucking played TNT? Who played what was the punk band we had, Pete? The Judge year.
The Ejected.
Yeah, the Ejected. So the night of the Ejected, there was some weird skinhead stuff happening.
What's the song called again? Young Tribes of England or Young Tribes of London?
From Ejected?
Yeah. Young Tribes of England, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. You left, Pete, to go home. I stayed, and I don't know if Rob took me home. Someone took me home, but I think like Rob and Neil and me were packing up, and no one was there. And a group of these skinheads showed up. It was kind of wild Brooklyn kids, and it just had this weird energy. And I walked over to them, and I was solo, and there was like 6 of them. And the main kid gave me a hug, and I was like, this is where I get stabbed. Like, it just was like, this, like just going to test this out. But this kid's going to stick me with like something rusty right now. Like, I just knew it.
Yeah.
And it was like the weirdest hug I've ever felt. Like, it was like this tense hug. And then it was like just a clammy hand and like I don't really know this kid. And he was like, love you. See you tomorrow. And like you and I had texted, and I was just like, I don't know. Like, that was weird.
It could have went either way almost.
Yeah. And I had this weird text from my mom that was like, she was like, your box was delivered. And I was like, oh, great. So I got home, and the box wasn't there. And I was like, maybe Frankie took it in.
I remember this now.
And someone took the box.
So we were laughing, saying, because this box up and be like, what the fuck is this?
Someone opens this box, and there's a fucking owl wing and like a cat skull and deer bones. It's probably freaked them the fuck out. But, that's like, there's always these weird energies in my life where something can go one way, but then it doesn't, and then something's like gone, So,
somewhere in the U.S., someone's doing a podcast about that event right now.
Yeah. Like, they probably like won the lottery, or
So that the owl wing was almost like a protection amulet or something like that.
That's how I view it. Like,
so it probably landed right when you were about to get stabbed.
Yeah, like someone opened up the box and,
It prevented.
Probably like crashed their car looking at it or something.
Yeah,
but
something
yeah,
clicked in this kid's mind. He's like, "Love you, see you tomorrow." But like a second before that, he was probably about to shiv you.
yeah. I mean, and like we've been in situations where you know the energy of something, and it's
yeah.
like okay, like I'm gonna walk over and say what's up and see what happens, and
Right.
hopefully someone comes outside while I'm getting gutted by a screwdriver. But and he was just like super, went from weird to weirdly friendly, and then just walked off into the Hartford night.
Yep. That's
But
crazy.
like, but that box was gone that day. And that to me, I don't know. There's just too many, like you said earlier, coincidences like that.
Wow. I don't remember like that. I remember like your mom sending that and the box being lost, but I don't recall like the story that went along with it. I must have just so many crazy things were happening at that time.
Yeah, and I'm also guilty of like not accepting the unknown at times too. But like, yeah, I definitely remember like us, like, you were on your way home and I was like, oh, these dudes are here. But I don't, but that was also, 3 days of shows out of our minds.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was trying to look at like the notes I had written, and the one thing that was just kind of, which isn't, it's more of a different evil, but it was just a funny story, was I had, in 81 going to a karate tournament, and the tournament was in Jacksonville, and it was kind of, as my parents were ending, and my dad took away my mom's car, and my mom's stubborn and put us on a Greyhound bus, and this guy with a mustache and a flannel shirt and a duffel bag with a lock on the bag and a really bad teeth sat down next to us, was playing me tic-tac-toe, and I was just destroying him. He wasn't that bright, and my mom was like, just fucking let him win, please. I was like, no, he's a loser, and my mom's like, just, like this is bad, like because he would like punch the seat in front of him and like say crazy shit angry. And twitch every time like he would lose, and
like he acted.
My mom was like
he acted unpredictable.
Yeah, like you're, and you got to think like 81. You don't have a cell phone. Like if there's a crazy guy with a mustache punching in a bus seat, like
there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, that's your bus ride. Yeah. So this guy's like,
for how many hours were you on this bus?
It was like a 5-hour ride.
Oh, so that's a long ride.
Yeah, it's a long ride, and he at one point started cleaning a machete on the bus. And like I kind of painted a little picture of my dad, but like obviously it takes a lot for my mom to be like, okay, we got to leave. So the guy kept like smelling my mom and telling her how good she smelled and like huffing her and
how close was he sitting in the same?
Yeah, in the same row as us.
Oh my God! So he was actually like sniffing on your mom, like
like when I say sniffing, he was like, like face in.
Oh my gosh!
So my mom's like freaking out, and he's like touching my leg, and he's like, well, I'll give you guys a ride to where you're going. Like, I have to pick up my car. And we were like panicking, and it started to sink in for me, like what was going on. So he took a nap and was like, wake me up at the stop. And we crawled over him and got off an early stop and called my uncle. He came and got us. And, it's been this joke that was like a serial killer, between me and my mom for years. And when we were doing this editing on that story, I was like, Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas, like, were in Florida. I was like, Otis Toole, supposedly killed Adam Walsh with a machete. Same year. And my mom was like, yeah, because it was right before Adam Walsh, because I got weird, traveling after that.
Right.
And I was like, yeah. I was like, so I was like, I don't know. And I showed her a picture of Otis Toole, and she looked like she was going to vomit. And she was like, yeah, that's what the guy looked like. I was like, definitely. And I was like, I'm just going to Google Otis Toole Greyhound bus. So I Googled that, and in them linking the Adam Walsh death with him, he was somewhere in Virginia, and there's document records of the Salvation Army in the South buying him a Greyhound ticket to Jacksonville. So they're saying that when he took a Greyhound bus to Jacksonville, got his Cadillac, and then drove to Miami, Hollywood, Florida, and killed Adam Walsh within 3 days of landing in Jacksonville. I can't say that's Otis Toole, but it's pretty.
That's very close, man. That's scary shit. That's such a brush with death. There's no way that's not true. Like, that had to have been him.
Yeah, I mean, it's you can find online his Greyhound stuff.
Yeah.
And it's the same year, same state. So
yeah, and if you would just look at pictures from around that time.
Yeah, so Max, when did you exactly like him?
You just put this together recently?
Yeah, like a week ago.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts.
and that's like, and it puts you in this kind of choose your own adventure of like, okay, like, what if he didn't fall asleep and we didn't get off the bus? You're
like the Forrest Gump of the bizarro world, right? Holy shit!
So that that's been like a heavy thing, like in discussion with my mother and I of like.
What did she think about that when you brought that to her?
It's the vision of this guy, and she said his smell and his breath has creeped her out, and she said it was just in like a mother's intuition where this guy's gonna kill us and we have to escape. And and the weapon he used to behead Adam Walsh was a machete.
Yeah.
And that was why they couldn't link him, because the cops lost that machete.
Right.
So, and I mean, my mom sat there with me watching the guy clean him fucking machete
on the bus. Imagine that in 2018 now.
Yeah.
That same, you couldn't even pull out a nail clipper on a bus.
No.
Unreal.
No, you pull out a lighter and so, that's like, I don't know how you don't believe in higher forces and angels and protection and, when you have things like that.
Yeah.
And I think, with a wild ride in this lifetime, it's hard. I have a really heavy balance.
I was just going to say that, like, from these extremes, you know what I mean? You have, from the violence to the heavy drug use to like these near brushes with death, you've come through all of them by
somewhat same.
Something has helped you along the way,
Yeah, and I mean, and I also think it's important with these experiences where you don't look at them with anger and you kind of embrace them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you go mad if you don't, but I think, and that's something like, like I think probably all three of us have had to deal with in our own ways. Like, like anger really feeds to, that hatred. And, like I think that was a lot of things with me early on. The karma was very instant.
The burning fucking hatred.
Yeah, I mean, it never goes away, trust me, but it
never does.
But I've learned to channel it in different ways, and I think that's why I write,
mm-hmm.
and hide in the mountains.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those are, a handful of unexplainable things and just things that make me me, and that I don't like to share with everyone, but,
well, now you just did, and once the show hopefully takes off, you're going to have, thousands of people listening to something you only felt comfortable telling Klaus and I in private.
Yeah, I can start doing UFO tours about my introduction.
No,
Yeah.
and we love you, and we also know that there's tons of more stuff that we could talk about. But I mean, we start somewhere, and then there's a shit ton of stuff that me and Peter haven't touched on, and there's a shit ton of stuff that you didn't touch on now, and then you remember new stuff, and you forget about things, and then like, oh fuck, I have this story as well. But I think that goes with the territory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely never ending. And,
It's never ending.
you know, I think these things are important to document. And, you know, it's like the thing that was really special to me is like, you know, there's been countless of hours of me and Pete sitting somewhere, being in a car together. And, you know, obviously, you know, he has history, you know, I have history, but there's certain things you don't really just always get into because a lot of the stuff's really heavy. But, you know, just even hearing Pete describe that taste and these dreams and thoughts, you realize, oh, this is also why I'm drawn to this person. I love this person so much, and this is my brother, because we do share these things that are unspoken, you know?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Max, I'm really looking forward to the new book, to the TV show. I know it's a labor of love for you. You've been working on it for years. Everything that you do is really incredible. I'm very proud of you, man. Can't wait for it all to come together. And I can't thank you enough for talking with us today. We had a really great conversation. We're going to do it again, you know, soon with you, hopefully. Hopefully, we can have you back on the show at some point as we get moving along. But yeah, man, thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, again.
Yeah, thank you. I love you guys, and this is, you know, it's a special thing, and you know, I can't wait to hear everything else, and you know, especially your two stories, you know, and I'm so glad you guys are doing this.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like there's gonna be more episodes when Peter and I talk about just stuff that we've experienced, because I also know that we love the episodes that we did, but we also censored ourselves to a degree. Would you say so, Pete? There's more.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's more there. And with that said, I would love to have you on for a second episode, Max. And
I would love to get deeper and darker, and you know, maybe the next time too, you guys can. I don't have a story, but you guys ask. You know, we can talk more, and you can pull some stuff out of me because that's fun. You know,
definitely.
But I think this is great, and you know, hopefully, these stories are good, and you know, it does what you guys are doing justice. You know, like I hope I you know, was open enough for you guys.
Oh, it was
some
great.
Of the stuff's hard.
Yeah, it was very good, man. People, it's going to be a very good episode. You know, we touched on a lot of different things about your life, and you know, it's just an extension of your writing. So I think a lot of people that, like I said earlier, that follow your writing and read your stories are going to really enjoy this episode, and other people, obviously, other people as well.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, this is one for the books. This is one that I've been looking forward to the most, and it was perfect, Max. Everything I wanted it to be, and I kind of feel that I'm saying the same thing as Peter hinted now. It's an extension of your creative work elsewhere, both music wise, but also in your writing.
These things that we're touching on make you more than anything else, you know. And I think these experiences, that's who I am, and it's definitely hard. It's hard to put that in writing, and a lot of things that were so personal in my life have, you know, some things have lost their edge through social media or have been kind of watered down and taken lightly. And especially in kind of the work, you know, it seems like in 2018, everyone's does magic and witchcraft. And, you know, there's a lot of things I grew up with my mom, and I just, you know, I don't want to exploit that. So I'm very picky on who I talk to, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're honored to have you here. This is wrapping up the 8th episode of the Stockbury Dark, and we're going to be signing off. Thanks again, Max. Thank you, Klaus. We will
Thank
see
you,
you
brothers.
guys very soon.
Thank you, brothers.
Goodbye.
Bye.